Hello, reporter room investigators. Oh, hold on. Come on in, come on in. Let me just try to adjust this. Sorry, I'm having technical problems. Come on in, come on in. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. Today, we're going to be talking about the BRYAN KOHBERGER case. Breaking news almost every day on this case. So we're going to be talking about Ann Taylor. I told you guys in the last live stream that Ann Taylor wants to introduce to the jury that BRYAN KOHBERGER, according to the defense team, is autistic. Now, we have the response back from the prosecution that they filed the motion in response to Ann Taylor and her defense team. Then we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about where the perpetrator, remember, BRYAN is innocent until proven guilty, but where the perpetrator most likely threw away the knife and maybe some of the other incriminating evidence in this case. We're going to talk about the real reason that law enforcement wants access to BK's social media, right? They got search warrants for it. So let's look at what they got the search warrants for and what this could this help exonerate BRYAN KOHBERGER? Could this implicate BRYAN KOHBERGER? We're also going to talk about what shoe size BK wears. Some of you guys didn't think he wore a size 13. Let's see. And then whether or not the jury will consider BK's autism when they, if he's found guilty. So we have a lot of stuff to get into. I have prepared for you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 packages. So a record number of packages, you guys. And then after this, we're going to be going right into the Sebastian Rogers case. So this is going to be a really great show, packed full of information. So if you have not subscribed, the trial for BRYAN KOHBERGER jury selection begins July 30th. So we are getting close to that trial date. So we're getting more and more information because both the prosecution and the defense are throwing everything they can at this case to try to, get the information in that they want in and exclude the information that they do not want in. So please subscribe. It's free. It's free and it helps me out a lot. I also want to say thank you to our producers, Jazz, Sasha Angel, Mikey M, George Brown, and Pepper. And also a big thank you to all of our channel members. If you would like your name to appear just like this, just click the join button, which is next to the subscribe button. And your name will appear in all of my upcoming videos. And you get a blue check mark. You get a blue check mark next to your name. So thank you so much. And I also want to do super thanks and coffee gratitude for the last week and a half. Thank you so much. And gifted channel members, thank you so much. And Jazz. All right, so let's get started.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
So thank you to all of our mods. They're the ones with the wrenches. Thank you to our subscribers and thank you to our channel members. I cannot get to 40,000 subscribers without your help. So will the judge throw out the capital punishment because BRYAN KOHBERGER, according to the defense team, is autistic? Now, the prosecution has responded to the defense team's motions, and let's go through that together. And then we're going to go through the evidence that was collected that we know about so far, what this means. Will it implicate, will it exonerate BRYAN KOHBERGER, and the real reason law enforcement wants access to BRYAN KOHBERGER's social media account. We're going to go through that in just a moment, but let's start with the breaking news, which is the prosecution's response to the defense team's claim, and they really turned this case on its head, in my opinion. Now, BRYAN KOHBERGER is innocent until proven guilty. I do have to talk about this case in terms of BRYAN KOHBERGER, however, because it's the defense team that's making all of these motions on his behalf. So, and the prosecution is making motions. So I do have to talk about this case in terms of BRYAN KOHBERGER. So I hope you guys, understand. All right, so let's get started with the breaking news. And I want to, first I want to just share the receipts on this. Let me grab a sip of water. I'm just waiting for it to populate. I have so much going on right now. I'm like, my computer is struggling to keep up with me. Okay, so we know that, okay, so Ann Taylor, for those of you that missed the live stream that I did on Wednesday, just so I'm going to set the table, then we're getting into the new news. So Ann Taylor filed a motion to, quote, strike the DP, the capital punishment, citing related to autism spectrum disorder. This is summaries of court documents show, quote, a motion to redact or seal newly filed records, which was also entered, quote, in support of their motions to strike the death penalty. If you want to see the actual court records, I showed them on Wednesday's live stream. So it's unclear. My sourcing on this is Curo 7. If BK has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, or if they're just looking for a diagnosis for autism spectrum disorder. But I'm thinking that they do already have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And I just want to say for everyone that's like, oh my gosh, for people who are on, autistic and who are on the spectrum, they are no more likely to commit a crime than someone who is neurotypical. So I just want to share that. So they're no more likely to commit a crime like this and than somebody who's neurotypical. So I'm curious. So the prosecution, meanwhile, they clapped back, and I'm going to show you what they said next, but they clapped back last week, citing a state law providing, quote, mental condition shall not be a defense to any charge of criminal conduct except expert evidence on the issues of any state of mind, which is an element of the defense. And we're going to talk about the real reason of why law enforcement does want access to BK's social media records in just a second. So please stay with me. Let me move myself out of the way. Let's see. Okay, so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Okay, so this is the motion. This was filed by the prosecution. So you can see Latah County Prosecutor's Office, William W. Thompson, that's Bill Thompson, and Ashley S. Jennings, who's the senior deputy prosecutor. And then it's State of Idaho versus Bryan Christopher or C. Kohlberger. So it's titled State's Motion in Lamine, Neuropsychological and Psychiatric Evidence. And because they're saying, they're talking about it in terms of it, I'm assuming that, remember I told you a couple of weeks ago that the prosecution had released Bryan Kohlberger's mental and physical health records, and I thought maybe there was a plea deal. And I also believe that no plea deal was reached. And so Ann Taylor is trying another way to get capital punishment thrown out. She's a great attorney, and she's doing an end run around that, in my opinion. And so let's see what the process by, and then also, releasing that he has autism spectrum disorder. So, because this would be protected under HIPAA. So this is what the Latah County prosecuting attorney says, respectfully moves the court for an order in Lamine prohibiting defendant from offering testimony regarding neuropsychological evaluation and psychiatric evaluation of the defendant as summarized in the defendant's January 23rd, 2025, quote, supplemental response to request for discovery regarding expert witness. They continue. Specifically, the state objects to the proposed testimony of expert witness identified in defendant's exhibits D7 and D13. Now, we don't have access to these right now. Appended to the defendant's, quote, supplemental response to request for discovery regarding expert witness. So in support of this motion, they are citing Idaho 18-207, which is the state's motion in Lamine regarding the neuropsychological and psychiatric evidence, which provides the mental condition shall not be a defense to any of the criminal conduct except, quote, expert evidence on the issues of any state of mind, which is an element of the offense. And then they're citing Idaho Code 18-2071 and 18-2073. They continue in the witness summaries, and we're going to get into the real reason that they want Bryan Kohlberger's socials in just a second, so please stay with me. In the witness summaries, defendant exhibit D7 and D13, the defendant specifically states that, quote, the testimony is not intended to be a mental element defense pursuant to Idaho Code 18-207, but rather, this testimony is about state of mind as well as a factual defense testimony to anticipated testimony elicited by the state. And it's signed William W. Thompson. So I think that is very, very interesting. So let's continue on because we have a lot of stuff to dig into. Let me close the ads on this. Okay. Let me grab this.
His own story.
All right. So let me back it up. Just one, in case anybody's like scrolling by, they don't know what we're talking about. They'll know where we are on this. Okay. All right. So let's dig into all of this information. So this is my opinion on this. I am not convinced. I do think Ann Taylor is doing a great job. And when I initially read this, I thought this was going to turn the whole case on its head. And maybe it will if the judge lets it in. But then I started considering, well, what was the other big Idaho case that we heard about a lot last year, which was the Lori Vallow Daybell case, right? She did have mental health issues. She had mental health issues to the point where the trial had to be put on hold. The trial had to be put on hold while they, got her to the point where she could stand trial for this. So this is my opinion on what I think is how the judge is going to decide. And I'll be curious what you guys think if you have a different opinion. So I think that Ann Taylor's autism defense is not going to sway the judge in this case. I don't know if under Idaho law, if it's going to be allowed in. And the reason that I feel this way is that a lot of people have mental health issues. And if you get into like people who are in jail for criminals, you'll have diagnoses of childhood oppositional defiance disorder, which is a childhood diagnosis because we can't diagnose children with sociopathy or psychopathy. So that's usually something that later, when they have that, they'll later get it. We might have people who have obsessive compulsive disorder where they've fixated on someone. If you've ever watched any shows on stalking, you hear a lot of these people that stalk people and follow these celebrities and non-celebrities too, and become obsessed with people, do later or even before have obsessive compulsive diagnoses. The other one, is attention deficit disorder and autism and anxiety, right? So if a judge in Idaho threw out every single capital punishment because of a mental health diagnosis, then what would be the point of having capital punishment? So I'm thinking that the judge I don't know if he's going to allow this in and let the jury consider it during the mitigation phase, but in my opinion, I don't think this is going to be allowed to come in. And my reasoning is because of the way that it went in the Lori Vallow Daybell case. If they do allow it to come in, and Ann Taylor does want to put an expert on the stand to say this, then I think she's going to have to show, according to Idaho law, how this directly applies. And please don't hate the messenger here. I'm just, giving you the information and my educated thoughts on it. And by educated, I mean researched. I do spend hours and hours getting ready for these Bryan Kohlberger live streams. This takes a lot of research to come live about this case. So let's go through the evidence collected at the crime scenes and what this may mean for Bryan Kohlberger. And then we're going to talk about the real reason that law enforcement wants Bryan Kohlberger's social media information and where the perpetrator likely stashed the knife. We're going to go through that in just a moment, so please stay with me. But let's start talking about what law enforcement evidence was collected. So let me grab that next. Okay, I want to grab this. All right. Make sure we're all looking at the same thing, and let me move myself out of the way. Okay, so this is an article by BuzzFeed News. And we're going to talk about the different things that they collected, and then I'm going to just share with you. So I just want to show you the receipts on that. And then here's the actual clips from the affidavit. So let's talk about these, and then I want to just give you my thoughts on what they got and what I think this could mean. So we know they got a 40 caliber gun, a knife, a pocket knife, empty gun magazines when BK was arrested. Now, I don't know why he would have had that gun. I'm not clear on why he would have had that in his possession. They also got a cell phone, multiple laptops, a knife, a pocket knife, a 40 caliber handgun, and 3 empty magazines. Black face masks. I think this may be significant. We know from Dylan's testimony, and black gloves were also found. And more articles of dark clothing. We know Dylan saw somebody dressed all in black, wearing a mask, carrying something that she thought looked like a vacuum, which I think was a KILL kit. And the fact that I'm just watching my words in case you have little ones in the room. The fact that he had this 40 caliber handgun and 3 empty magazines I think is really interesting. And we know a knife was used at the 1122 King Road house. We're also hearing reports that the knife from that crime scene was not found. And I'm going to tell you where I think the perpetrator threw it in just a moment. So please stay with me. So I'm wondering why he would have chosen a knife over a handgun, and speculation warning here. But in my opinion, he would have preferred the use of a knife because it would have been quieter, number one. And number two, it would have been more personal. It would have been more personal. And as horrific as that sounds, they also found the black face mask and the black gloves. And I do think this just adds another circumstantial piece to Dylan's testimony, along with the Van's shoe print, which we talked about on Wednesday. If you didn't see Wednesday's live stream, you'll want to watch that when we're done here. So they also found 2 external hard drives. Now, this could provide a lot of information. I think it's interesting that he was traveling with 2 external hard drives. And I'm just wondering if he had information there that he didn't want on his computer, like maybe trophies. I also use external hard drives. I back up everything rather than using the cloud. This way I can access anything, and I can also, move it around quickly if I need to. But I'm just wondering if he would have backed up any trophies or photographs that he might have liked in particular. What did they find on that? We don't know. And I'm going to talk about the real reason they wanted his socials and where I believe the knife was disposed of in just a second. So please stay with me. But someone asked me in the live stream that I did on Wednesday, what cell phone BK had. Now I'm assuming he had an Android phone because those are more secure than an iPhone. iPhone has good security, but you're not going to have Apple tracking you on that. And I did ask Google and they Google also came back that it was an Android device. But I don't know if this is correct or not, because when I was looking at it, I know AT&T was a cell phone provider, and they came back with T-Mobile being the cell phone provider. And I looked and looked and looked yesterday for about an hour and a half just to try to track this down. And I could not find anything. If you have anything on that, please let me know where you found it so I can bring it to you guys. The dark clothing is also interesting, but I don't know if that in and of itself really means anything. I mean, we all have dark clothing in our things. They also found and seized medical and court documents. So I thought that was interesting, along with various criminology books and criminology psychology books. Again, none of these really jump out at me as being anything crazy. He was a criminology major. He would, of course, have books on the subject. So authorities also found a note to Dad from Bryan and a note from Bryan to Montana, in addition to a notebook, a note, and a man's world drawing. So I was able to go through the documents and see the laptop that they seized was an Acer. It was not an Apple. And let me show you the receipts on that. Let me close out this one. They also got, I think this is interesting. But I did save a article that talks about that being an ACER. Let me share this one instead. Okay. This was interesting too. Number 9, let me make sure I'm showing you what I'm looking at. Yeah, number 9 kind of jumped out at me too. It shows a buccal swab. And remember I told you there was evidence that there had been DNA tests with him. Well, I think the fact that he had this one buccal swab, I think that's where that's coming from. So why would he be carrying DNA tests around with him?
Let's go to Mercedes Coleman. She is on the phone with us as well.
Let me pause that. Okay, so boy, even when you pause these, they still try to play them. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking for the information on I'm trying to find the clip of the ACER. Well, you might have to take my word for it because I don't want to hunt for it too long because we have so much to get into. And I'm doing another live stream right after this on the Sebastian Rogers case. All right, let me close this out. And let me show this one instead. Maybe it's on here and I'm just looking at the wrong thing. Okay. So here we also have swabs listed, which I think is really interesting. They even counted his nickels and pennies. And some of this I, don't think is a big deal. It's just, inside stuff from the cars. But it does tell me that the fact that Ann Taylor doesn't want this evidence to be admitted tells me that they did find something in that car, maybe some things that Ann Taylor doesn't want to have put in front of the jury. So we still don't know why he did this. We still don't have a motive, but I do think it's really, really interesting. Okay, let's continue on because I have so much to get through. And I will find I took a screenshot of the ACER. I will put it on the next one. So somebody asked me, how did we know law enforcement? How do we know that BK wears a size 13? Because if you go through the affidavit, you'll see that law enforcement found size 13 Nike shoes when they executed their search warrant. So that's where I got that from. So now let's go through the real reason that law enforcement wanted to access Bryan Kohlberger's social media. And then we're going to look at where the perpetrator most likely disposed of the knife and maybe some other evidence too. But let's start with going through BK's the real reason why law enforcement wanted access to his social media. Let me say hello to chat. I don't want to be on social, and I also want to make this interactive. So if you're watching, come on up and talk to me. I would love to know your questions. Thank you to all of our mods. And this is Pepper. Thank you for modding. And Jazz is one of our head mods. And hi, Ariana. Hi, Kimmy. Kimmy's another mod. Thank you for modding today. Hi, Deborah. Thank you for being a channel member, Christine. Hi, Florence. Thank you for being a channel member. MK is here. Dabs is here. Adriana's here. Bobby's here. This is our other head mod. This is Brother Mike. So everybody you see with the wrenches is a mod. Hi, Donna. Glad you're here. Midwest is here. Hi, Midwest. Glad to see you. Thank you for being a channel member. Patricia is here. Sue Joy is here. Brother Mike is our other head mod, and then Njaz is our other head mod. And I haven't seen Sixth Sense Amelia this week at all, but hopefully we'll see her today. And Tony's here. Those defense attorneys are grasping at straws. Well, I think what Ann Taylor is doing is she's throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks, right? I mean, I think she's doing a good job. She needs to do what she can to protect Bryan Kohlberger, right? So I think that's what she's doing.
To show.
So I don't like fault her for trying all this. I mean, the whole idea is to try to see what sticks. Leslie's here. And we're going to, Wicked is here. And Tammy said, so glad you covered a G-rated cast. My grandbaby's here, everything. Yeah, thank you. I do that. Yeah, please subscribe. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Thank you, Brother Mike, for the $1.99 super sticker. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Patricia says she also, yeah, everything is for a new computer. I am getting a new computer. All right, so let's continue on, guys, because we have a lot more information to dig into. So please come up, join me in the top chat, and bring your questions. So I think BRYAN Kohlberger's, they want his access to social media sites. And according to ABC News, we already knew about the Strava, the records from Strava. That's an internet service that allows users to track their physical exercise and share their performance on social media. And I've shared with you in the past that Strava is more precise than GPS, because GPS only tracks you when you're in the car. Strava's off an app you keep on your phone. We know from the affidavit that BRYAN had hiking shoes. We also know that he had the Strava app because that's also in the warrants. So even more importantly, were records related to the 4 victims, and that's Snapchat accounts were obtained according to documents including, quote, communications or other messages sent or received by the accounts. So logs of previous snaps, those are like the stories, and the chats, all records. This is what they got. This is what they wanted. And I'm going to tell you why I think they wanted all this. All records pertaining to communication between Snapchat and any other person, the user or the user's Snapchat accounts, including contacts with support services, and all records of action taken, including suspensions of the accounts. So was BK also suspended? Let's talk about Snapchat and why this is important. Let me take this down and add this in. Let me move myself out of the way. Okay. So, and then we're going to go into where I believe the knife was most likely disposed of. So Snap Map is a personalized map. So my sourcing on this is actually Snapchat. So Snapchat has an app called Snap Map, and it lets you see where your friends are and have been and what's going around you, your favorite restaurants and bars, and even see what's happening in the world. So, was BK using another, he could have easily gotten a photo of a friend of one of the victims and posed as them on Snapchat and been able to interact with them on this site. He would have been able to see where they were. And, although the stalking statute doesn't apply in Idaho, because in Idaho, for it to be considered stalking, the victims have to feel harassed or threatened. And I don't think these victims even knew he was with them. But I do think the fact that law enforcement went after Snapchat is interesting. And as you know, Paul Murdaugh solved his own crime using Snapchat. A Snapchat video proved that Alex Murdaugh was there. So let's talk about Snap Map. Make sure we're all looking at the same thing. Okay, so to not be, oh my gosh, I just dropped it. Sorry, let me grab it one more time. Okay, so to not have your information showing up on SnapMat, you have to disable it. You have to disable it. So I think that's really interesting too. So snaps on SnapMat are collections of snaps submitted from different Snapchatters throughout the community. So every time, so let me just put this into context. Every time that Kaylee or Maddie would have or Xana would have uploaded a picture of themselves onto Snapchat, it would have given away their location. And let me show you what a SnapMat looks like to the user, and why I think this is why law enforcement wanted access to it. Okay, so let me show you this. So this is what it would have looked like to somebody that was, interested in what other people were doing, where they were going, and you have to opt out of this. So if you look at this, you can see clearly that he would have seen not only where the picture, the picture and what they had in the background of the picture, but if they uploaded it to Snapchat, and we know that Snapchat was one of the things that was targeted, and I believe it's because of the Snap Map app that's what they would have wanted, that BK would have known where they were and when they were there. So I think that's one of the big reasons why they were so interested in that. And let me grab this really quick. Okay, so we're going to talk about where the most likely place that BK would have disposed of that knife sheath and other information, assuming that, he is the perpetrator on this, in just a second. So please stay with me. Let me add this in. Okay.
Yeah.
So come on in and bring your questions. I'm curious what you guys think. Definitely want to know. Bring your questions and in your comments. I want to hear what you guys think about all of this information. And then we're going to dig into where I believe the knife sheath was disposed of. So Adriana's like, put me in, coach. Hi, Bobby. So thank you to all of our mods, channel members, and subscribers. Hi, Donna. Okay, so let me see. Tony says those defense attorneys are grasping at straws. I don't know if they are. I just feel like they are doing a good job. I can understand why you feel like that, and a lot of people do feel that way. So I don't want to minimize your feelings on this. I just think that, Ann Taylor's job is to try to get rid of capital punishment. She, definitely wants to get ahead of that. So that's why she's filing these motions. But I think the prosecution, I told you at the time, I thought that it was interesting that Steve Gonzalez was so passionate about capital punishment, saying that if it didn't apply to this case, then where, these victims were in their own homes, in their own beds, then he didn't understand why it would apply in any case. And I do think that I do think that it, is very, very interesting. So thank you for sharing that, Tony. Let me see. Diana said, looked up the pronunciation. It's pronounced motion in limine. Thank you for that. I wasn't sure. And Jess says, please hit the thumbs up button. Yeah, thanks for that. And Jess, you let YouTube know it's a G-rated show. Diane says she is pulling out everything she can, but that's her job. Yeah, it's her job to defend BRYAN KOHBERGER, and I think she's doing a great job. If you think Ann Taylor is doing a great job defending BRYAN KOHBERGER, put a 1 in the chat. If you think she's not doing enough to defend BRYAN KOHBERGER, put a 2 in the chat. I'm curious to know what you guys think about that. My brother Mike says I have ADHD, and it's now considered on. And to be clear, nobody diagnosed BRYAN KOHBERGER with ADHD. What I am saying is that, the reason that I believe that the judge is not going to consider this autism, I think Ann Taylor did make it available to the prosecutor. This is how I think it went down. I think Ann Taylor did make the autism diagnosis available to the prosecution. That's why she released. Remember, we talked about her releasing of his medical and mental health records. His physical and mental health records were released to the prosecution a couple weeks ago. And I told you at the time, I thought there was some type of effort to negotiate a plea deal. Now, I believe, and then I showed you guys why I thought that. And then the other day, early, I think it was Sunday night, I showed you, or maybe it was Monday night, I showed you guys in the live stream the interview that Steve Gonzalez gave to News Nation, where he specifically is very heated about the capital punishment, and specifically says if it doesn't apply to this case, I don't know when it would apply then. And so that made me also think that the prosecution couldn't agree to anything without going to the family members. And of course, if the defense was offering a deal, whether the prosecution thought it was a good deal or not a good deal, they would still take it to the family, just to see what the family, thought about it. Because the families don't have the final say, but they would have some input on it. And I told you guys, I thought this was a double-edged sword, because I think from a family's point of view, yes, if they plead guilty, You don't have to deal with all of the appeals. Like Chris Watts pled guilty. He had to allocate to what he did. But you also don't, get a final, end to it with the capital punishment. Whereas that, if that's imposed, if he's found guilty and that's imposed, then that's the end. The person is no longer with us. There's no appeals. They can move on. Yeah. Thank you so much, Pepper, for modding today. Please don't forget to give this a thumbs up. So yeah, the spectrum. Now I want to also be really, really clear for those of you who are out there that think, oh, people with autism don't have empathy, or somehow this could be related to autism. That's simply not the case. I just want to assure you guys of that. Autism is, is something that they do have empathy. But what people with autism have a lot of difficulty with is that they have trouble reading social cues and sharing also their feelings, expressing themselves. So I'm just wondering with BRYAN KOHBERGER, and let me know what you guys think. You might have a different feeling about it, but I'm just wondering if, because his mom was a special needs teacher and he, oppositional defiance disorder, which later becomes sociopathy or psychopathy in a number of young people, is often conflated with autism because of the inability to show empathy. The other thing, the reason I think the judge is not going to let this autism diagnosis come in is that because he's not low functioning. If his IQ was like under 70% and he was like mentally compromised, mentally disabled to the point where, he was not able, but this was a guy in a PhD program. He had his master's degree from his college in Pennsylvania. He was working as a teaching assistant in Pullman, Washington at Washington State University. So he had a high IQ. So I think it's unlikely that he would have, I just think it's unlikely the judge is going to let the autism. When I first saw it, I thought it would come in. Now I'm not so sure, especially in looking at reading the prosecution's response to that, which I shared at the top of the show, which is that they were citing case law where it should not come in. And then also considering the Lori Vallow Daybell case, where clearly she has, some mental health issues. She definitely has narcissistic personality disorder, in my opinion. I'm not a qualified person, but I do think she lacks empathy. And probably some sociopathy in there too. She lacks empathy. She clearly has grandiose feelings of superiority over other people. And so, but that, and even the fact that she seemed like she was like, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, they just held the trial, got her mental health back and still proceeded. Now they were not seeking capital punishment, but I do think this is Ann Taylor's, end runaround in an effort to try to figure out how am I going to get capital punishment taken off the table for my client? She's, so I'm like really curious. Pepper said, are there any actual records of BK being autistic? We don't know because everything is sealed. Everything is sealed. So, if I knew, I would be bringing it to you. So I don't know if this is like a diagnosis that she got a couple of weeks ago by having a mental health person. I don't know if this is diagnosis that, what came about when he was younger. Like, even remember I told you that BK was taken out of high school. Let me pull that up for you and just share that with you. I shared with you. He was removed from his high school. Let me see. Yeah, let me grab this. Okay, so let me share this and move myself out of the way here. Okay, let's move myself. Idaho Statesman. Let me see if I can still get in here. I think I can. Yeah, I did. Okay, I just have to accept their cookies. Okay. So let's go through this. So, BRYAN KOHBERGER dropped from high school police course after a complaint. So this I think is, very interesting. So it makes me wonder if his mom was a special needs teacher and nobody wants their child to be diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder. And I'm just wondering if he received an autistic diagnosis, because the lack of empathy, but for autism, people with autism do feel empathy. They just have difficulty expressing it. They have difficulty showing it. Whereas people with psychopathy or sociopathy have no empathy. But this is an interview that was done with Tanya Carmela Beers. And it was a really quote. It's being characterized by the Idaho Statesman as a pretty serious, and an interview with the Idaho M podcast. I'm watching my words here in case you have little ones in the room. She declined to elaborate because of the federal family education rights and privacy protections. But the investigation led to BRYAN KOHBERGER's removal his sophomore year from a law enforcement focus at Monroe Career and Technical Institute. That's his high school. So she confirmed this to the Idaho Statesman. So here's what we do know. Let me make sure we're all looking at the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So here's what we do know. She oversaw the technical school. This was his high school's mental health and discipline. And she reiterated that she could not divulge details of the incident, but there was an incident. And she said it was not medication related or alcohol related, not violent in any way. She declined to identify the number of people involved, but said the complaint about Kohlberger was not filed by a group of individuals. So the podcast reported that the complaint involved female students, and then BK switched to the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning program at the half-day technical school for his junior year. And my understanding is that he completed those online, not in person. So he switched to online education and didn't finish out his high school education in the classroom. In February, Carmela Beers declined to tell the Idaho Statements about her specific interactions with BK, who was 28 at the time. Instead, she spoke about their general circumstances that could lead to students being removed against their preference from the technical school's law enforcement project, which has now heightened its requirements. So she's being very careful. She doesn't want to get sued. She said, ultimately, what had him removed from the program, when I look back on it, makes sense. And we're going to talk about where I believe the knife was most likely disposed of in just a second. I just want to go through this with you. And she said, in light of the allegations, not knowing what I know, then you be like, I can't, I'm so shocked. And in that respect, I am. So she's saying she is shocked. But then, I know another little piece, which is that piece that occurred at the school. So then I'm like, that makes sense. So what she's talking about is she's talking about the crimes that he committed. And she said, if she didn't know what she knew about BK, she would have been shocked. But in light of the information that she has from his high school, she said it makes sense. So we've all seen this picture, of BRYAN KOHBERGER in his high school at Pleasant Valley. That's his yearbook from his sophomore year, wearing a police-like uniform, doing push-ups. So he was still enrolled in the law enforcement program in his sophomore year. And his goal was to become an Army Ranger, according to the photo's caption. But then his primary interest was law enforcement, according to his former friend, Thomas Arntz. After being dropped from the law enforcement focus and a year in the HVAC program, BK chose not to attend the technical high school for his senior year. This is according, again, to Carmela Beers, what she told the podcast. He instead completed his diploma requirements through Pleasant Valley's online program, telling Arndt's sister, Casey Arntz, in March of 2013, this is what BRYAN KOHBERGER told her, that he finished high school early. But Carmela Beers recalls that pursuing law enforcement was BK's dream, and that he stood out as a, quote, exceptional applicant for the highly competitive program. She said he appeared to be the total package. He was, Carmela Beers says. Other than that incident, BRYAN was a strong student, performed very well, and he took his program very seriously. His uniform was immaculate every day. Everything about him was perfect, so to speak. So she acknowledged that her podcast interview had the impact of getting kicked out of the program. She said, quote, "The real reason I remember his application was because of the way the guidance counselor really played it up on how it was all he wanted. So my feeling was that he was defeated, because it's the only thing he ever wanted in his life. And now you have it. And now that's falling through." So let's talk about the school complaint. So there were signs, and I talked to you guys about his sisters both going into the mental health field. So it is possible that around this time his mother took him in. His mother was a special needs teacher and, had him see a therapist. And maybe the therapist, because he wasn't showing empathy, conflated that with autism. Or maybe he actually is autistic. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you believe that BRYAN KOHBERGER is autistic? If you think he is autistic, put yes, he's autistic. If you think he is not autistic, say no, I do not think he's autistic. But this is what I think may have happened. This is speculation warning here. But let's talk about what school complaint led to an investigation. Okay, so there were early warning signs, according to Carmela Beers. So BK joined the law enforcement program at the county's technical program. There were some circumstances that led us to believe that maybe there were going to be some difficulties in BRYAN's life that weren't going to, she kind of pauses there, contribute to him having an easy time of it. She said, it wasn't going to be just ending up in the police academy kind of thing for him. It was going to be a little bit more of a challenge for him to get there. And she describes the complaint that was made as a teacher bringing it to Carmela Beers' attention that leading an investigation of the incident. So we don't know what the incident exactly is, but we got some clues here. BK and other students were interviewed in the process, and she said that a decision was made about his future in law enforcement. And she said, quote, "whether it's the decision the student wants or not." So I think he was removed from the program. Let me know what you think. She said, "I don't think that maybe he necessarily grasped the depth and breadth of the issue at hand. So I think there was frustration as to not really understanding. I don't understand what the problem is. This is not a big deal." Or, quote, "this didn't happen," or "it was just like seriously," kind of thing. High school is also where BK began using medication H, and the Arnezes and another former friend, Jack Bilas, previously told the Idaho Statesman in interviews. Addiction issues eventually led to BK being put in medication rehab. So at any point in all of this, he could have been diagnosed as having autism. So he does, before ABC's report, BK had no known criminal record leading up to his December arrest. However, we do know that there was something, because according to court records obtained by ABC, BK allegedly stole his older sister's cell phone and sold it at a local mall. So he did, this is why I'm wondering if he did not get admitted into the police academy, or to get that job that he applied for at the Pullman Police, not Police Academy, Pullman Police Department. He didn't get that job. He wanted to teach them how to use technology to catch criminals. And I'm just wondering if this, came up. The other thing I was kind of wondering about was why he was getting a felony burglary charge. And I thought maybe it was related to him having taken something from the crime scene. But what I found out is if you break into a residence and you commit any kind of felony, then the burglary charge applies. So I just wanted to share that with you as well. So let's talk about where we think the knife is. And I just do think that it's interesting that he looks like removed from this program, and we just don't have the actual reason as to why. So let me tell you, let me share this and let me move myself out of the way. Okay, so we're going to dig into what was going on. Let me close these pop-ups. All right, let me just put that there. I do want to check in with chat. Brother Mike thinks BK buried the knife in a pre-dug hole. Leslie said, if he does have autism, it's not an excuse. He's high functioning enough to get his degrees. Right. And I think that's what the judge is going to decide. I could be wrong, but that's what my prediction is, that it's going to be, just looking at Idaho law. This is, just, an educated guess on my part, but I think that, so speculation warning here. I do think the judge is maybe not going to allow this autism diagnosis in. I could be wrong. He could decide to let it in and let the prosecution, put up their own witness to, either say yay or nay to it. But I don't know under Idaho law if they're going to let that in. It doesn't seem like it to me. MK says, my guess is he threw the knife into the Snake River. Let me see. Yeah, we have a great Reporter Room Facebook group that you can come and be part of if you want to. Jeff's Mindful Arts, hello, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for your positivity and your encouragement. I really appreciate the positive comments, guys, because when I'm like reporting out news that people don't want to hear, and we're not going to all agree on every single case, but please don't hate the messenger. I'm just bringing you the information so you guys can make up your own mind. But if you're the type of person, if you're a critical thinker and you like to have all the information so you could decide for yourself, then this is the right channel for you. Please subscribe. If you just want confirmation bias, whereas you don't want to have new information, and this is really common. I have to fight against my confirmation bias too. This is like part of, being built into being a human being. And that means that some people, not everybody, but some people just, like to hear information that confirms what they already believe. Then, there are other channels that will cater to that. But if you like to have all the information and decide for yourself, then this is the right channel for you. So Jeff says, when I hear want, why, I cannot help but think to myself, what, why'd you do it, Brian? I think somebody yelled that as Brian came out of the van into jail. Oh, wow. Thank you to Edjaz for gifting a Reporter Room membership. And if you got the Reporter Room membership, let me know who you are. Leslie says, come on, show. Jessica loves some party. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Hi, Cynthia. Let me be Frank is here. Hi, Frank. Lucy's here. Leslie saying 216 in chat. Only, yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Don't hate the messenger. If I bring you news you don't like, please don't hate on the messenger. I I have to share the news with you. I don't want you guys to get to the trial and be like, she wasn't straightforward with me about everything. I tell you everything I know about this. The stalking law is, that does bother a lot of people. Maybe they will change it after this. Thank you, Leslie. Tara's here. Tara says, hi, I'm about to go out, but my question is, did they find the knife? No, they found the knife sheath, but I'm going to show you where I think the knife was disposed of. We're going to do that next. Cynthia says, doesn't the Snapchat app delete posts after a set time? Well, yeah, the app itself. So when you're on Snapchat, you think your posts are being deleted, but the map actually tracks where you are. So if you upload a picture, and I'm sure these girls, we know they were uploading to Instagram. I'm sure they did upload pictures to Snapchat. But if you have Snap Map, it also shows people where you are when you're uploading your photo. So if you don't disable that, people can see where you are. So how easy would it have been for a perpetrator? So I'm, not implicating anybody specifically, but how easy would it have been for a perpetrator to pose as snag a picture of one of their friends from another social media site, pose as that friend, and friend them on Snapchat and have access to where they are. You could easily stalk somebody using the Snapchat map. It's called Snap Map. So great question, Cynthia. So let's go. One. I'm just curious what you guys thought about this. 1. Hi, Annette. Welcome all the way from Australia. Wow. DM says 1. Angela says 1. Christine says 1. Penjam says 1. Janice says 1. All right. So we got a lot of 1s. I haven't seen any 2s. Donna said, didn't they find a shovel in his car? Why would a college student give a shovel to begin with when he lived in an apartment, not a house? Well, there was a shovel in the car. You're right. And, a lot of people have asked that. Now, one reason could be that, in case of snow, he had to dig his car out of the snow. I don't know. But it could also be that, there's another more nefarious reason. I guess my question is going to be, was there anything found on the shovel? If it was clean and didn't have any dirt on it, then, I would say, well, it was probably used for snow. If it has dirt on it and was like used for digging, then maybe something was buried somewhere. That's a great question. Hi, PJ. And that says, I always hit the like as soon as I come in. Thank you so much. Hi, Phyllis. So tell me what your questions are. Donna says she loves the new judge. He's not falling for the lies. I do think the judges was a little bit of a slippery slope for Ann Taylor. I think on the one hand, by coming to, by having this judge, I think at the one hand, Ann Taylor did get another bite of the apple. She got to re-argue the IgG DNA coming in, and John Judge in Latah County had already ruled on that, which is why I thought that this judge in Ada County was going to rule in a similar way. So she got another bite at the apple, and from her point of view, she wants a more liberal jury, and a big city like Boise is going to have, her a better chance of her not getting capital punishment and maybe a more liberal jury. The flip side of this, of Ann Taylor moving the trial to Ada County from Latah County, is that I think she got a tougher judge in Judge Stephen Hippler. I know what his full name is, but the algorithm misconstrues it as a 1938, 1940s dictator. So we're going to just call him Judge Hip on this channel. I don't want to. Hold on. Even if you play these, they still try to run these because they want to run that. Okay. So MK wants to know if he was really on the spectrum. Don't you think they would have mentioned it before now? Well, he has a HIPAA. He has a right to have his medical records protected. So I did see, definitely it caught my eye when Ann Taylor suddenly released his medical and physical health records, his mental health records and his physical health records, both to the prosecution. It definitely caught my eye. I was like, oh, there's something going on here that we don't know about. So yeah, that definitely caught my eye. But I guess BK would have had to have given her permission. And I think she initially only released them to the prosecution. And then I do think they did a plea deal was attempted to reach. I don't think some of the family members would have agreed to the plea deal. And I don't know if the prosecution would have agreed to the plea deal because we don't know what that was. So this is, speculation warning on my part. But I do believe that then she released it to the public, right? By putting this motion out there in regards to the autism, then we all found out that he was, allegedly diagnosed to be on the spectrum. Now, obviously he would be very high functioning, so again, that's why I think the judge may just say it doesn't matter just because you have anxiety or you have attention deficit disorder or you have, something like that doesn't mean that capital punishment, doesn't apply. If we had that, then every single person that was, ever put away for anything, they would have some kind of diagnoses, maybe, of obsessive compulsive disorder or something like that, then, would be a way out. I think that if he was on the spectrum and his IQ was really low in addition to that, so he had an IQ under 70 and he was, mentally incapacitated, I think that would be a reason to not seek capital punishment. But clearly in BRYAN KOHBERGER's case, he's highly intelligent. He was in a PhD program. So I think this is my opinion, and this is only my opinion. I'm curious if you have a different opinion. I think the judge is probably not going to allow this in, but we'll see what he decides. He may just say, yeah, like it'll come in, and in prosecution, you can, put out the information you want to put. So thank you so much to all of our mods today. Lucy says, given how much medical and other intervention he had through life, this must be a new and convenient diagnosis. I don't know if it's new. That's why I wanted to show you guys that article that he was removed from high school because his mom was a special needs teacher. Both his sisters have degrees in mental health, which to me, usually one sister, maybe, but having multiple siblings all getting their degrees in mental health to me maybe is a red flag that there was things going on in the house that we don't know about. Yeah, so anyway, you guys are bringing good comments. Jody, oh, thanks for listening, Jody. Mace Window says, are we sure he's not artistic? I believe he is a BS artist. Oh, a little snark there. Little snark there from Mace. Oh, Angela said, I would be okay with him rotting in prison for life rather than being in the other side with his victims. So you're okay with them not going for capital punishment. Florence put in a 1. Thank you so much, and Jazz. Top Cat says, BK obviously has a serious problem with his attitude toward women. Well, that was part of what we learned. If you listen to the podcast itself, they did say that it was some kind of problem with female students. So this is as young as when he was in high school. That, when he was a junior in high school, he had to switch programs. And then when he was a senior in high school, he had to do homeschooling. So something did happen in high school. And I shared with you on the last one of the 7 Sirens having notes on him. That's a pub in Pennsylvania where BK would have, near the DeSales University where he was pursuing his master's program. So I do think that there was, and then we know from the Washington State University that the altercations with the professor that ultimately, was leading to him being reprimanded, that it was also related to him grading female students differently than male students. So I do think there was underlying issues there. And a lot of people have said, well, what would be his motive? And I think that, if he's guilty, and again, he's innocent until found guilty, but what I think the prosecution is going to go with as far as motive is going to be, misogyny, just a general dislike and hatred toward women. And you can imagine, to see Maddie and Kaylee, I think initially he would have been, and Xana, I think initially he would have been attracted to them if he encountered them at the Mad Greek. And maybe they were nice, and they flirted a little bit for tips. I don't know, or he interpreted it as flirting. And then, when he was trying to message them on Instagram and liking all of Maddie's photos, which was reported out by Dateline NBC and also by Stephen Christie Gonzalez, I'm wondering if then this, interest in these young women then turned into a hatred. So I think you're right. And as far as like motive, hi Princess Elsa, I'm glad you're here. Sujoy says, I don't think he has autism. I do think he has something called evil. Just my opinion. I don't do email, Elsa. If you want to message me, you can DM me on Twitter. So I don't do the email thing. I know a lot of people do. I just don't, because I don't think I would have time to answer all of them and do all the research. For me to go live on a show like today, I have to put in hours of research, of looking stuff up. So I don't have to, like, I go on, and I'm also on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, so I'm on there a lot too. But I don't like have time to answer everybody's emails. You can drop a comment here. Or you can, if you follow me on Twitter, I'll have to follow you back. So just comment to me underneath, a post and, let me know, hey, follow me back, and I'll follow you back. Okay. So I hope I've answered your question. Digital Maniac said the only way Ryan could explain that DNA is to say he gave the knife to Maddie Kaylee for protection and they used it in defense, and the knife was taken with the real crimer. Watching my words here. That would be interesting. Sorry, I'm like getting, they pop up these ads and I can hear them. I don't think you guys can in my ears. Okay. Mike says, remember all the writing he used to do? I wonder if he has more writing current up to 2020. Well, we did wonder, a lot of us wondered if we were in the chat room with Bryan Kohlberger because we were in a chat with a guy. You know who I'm talking about, right? Who am I talking about? Papa Roger, right? So we were in a chat with Papa Roger. Let me pull that up. So you just know, like, what is she talking about? Okay. Let me share that. And let me move myself out of the way. Okay. So let's see if I can address your thing. And then we're going to get into where I believe the knife is. Okay. So is Papa Roger Bryan Kohlberger? And a lot of people, this was the avatar that was being used by the Papa Roger account. Now, to be clear, this was actually from Getty Image. It's a, publicly available, this photo. And it's a, an old soldier, but you could see if you were Bryan Kohlberger and you were trying to pick an image, maybe this would appeal to you. He was, his goal in high school was to go into the military. And there is a lot of people feel like there is somewhat of a resemblance there. But so Papa Roger was in our Facebook group, and full disclosure, I was in the Facebook group with Papa Roger. There was also an account on Reddit called Inside Looking. Now, these two accounts have posted and commented on numerous posts with information that it was really accurate, really accurate. Really, really accurate. Jennifer Coffindaffer commented on it. I commented on it. So of this one, it was of the evidence released, the M weapon, I'm watching my words, has been consistent with a large fixed blade knife. This leads me to believe they found the sheath. This evidence was released prior to the top C's. Okay. So this is dated November 30th of 2022. So how did this account know that it was a fixed blade knife? Because we didn't know that yet. How did they know that law enforcement found the sheath? So some of the posts that he was posting were kind of spooky. Here's another one. Tell me what you think. Was BK Papa Roger? It says, of the evidence released. Oh, I just shared that one. Okay, there was. Let me see if I can pull this one up bigger. And then here's another one. Why did the K, the Iller, use that house over all of the others in the area? So he was posting all kinds of stuff. But some of the stuff, he saw another one. So this was the Inside Looking post on Reddit. And I think this is why law enforcement was interested in Bryan Kohlberger's social media accounts. They found the Reddit post of Inside Looking, which read, quote, K, L, the Iller with a K, parked behind the house, approached property through the tree line, entered the sliding door and left it open. And I also believe that the sliding door was left open. And when Xana came out with her bag, her bag of food that she had gotten from DoorDash, I think she would have noticed that the door was open. And I actually think it was Xana who might have called out, there's someone here. I think Dylan did hear someone say something to that effect. I just don't know if it was Kaylee or if it was Xana, because I think when she came out to bring that bag out, that cold air whoosh, would have come right in. So, but this is, Inside Looking said that they approached the property through the tree line, entered the sliding door, left it open, committed the crimes, I'm watching my words, exited the sliding door. One knife, according to the coroner's statement, time of M is approximately 3:20 to 3:40. I think that's incorrect. So that was one thing that Inside Looking did get wrong. According to the car fleeing the scene and on camera, approximately 3:45, vehicle left skid marks. Now we know that the time is 4:04 or just thereafter. Inside Looking also said, this is the post. I just want to show you the receipts on that. So yeah, great points. Great points. Let me put this back up.
To get a
Let me take a couple more questions, and then I want to go into where I believe the knife sheath was thrown. Let me see. Bring your questions. Come on up and talk to me, you guys. I want I want to hear what you guys think about this. Juanita says, does that mean he's admitting guilt that he did do the crime? No, it doesn't. He's not admitting anything. He's not admitting any guilt. He's just, his attorney is saying that, without admitting anything, she just wants it as a mitigating factor. She's trying to have capital punishment taken off the table for him. So she wants him to be, I'm not saying she wants him to be charged and prosecuted, but of course, but she wants the capital punishment to come off the table. Great question. Boo says, didn't he just base that off a profile pic? My understanding was, this was a Russian soldier, and I think he, if it is him that was in there, and he was posting some other creepy things too. If you want me to do a live stream on that, let me know. Michael says, there is really no chance of his autism disorder may come in during the guilt phase. It has no relevance in Idaho, does not recognize that as a defense. Lucy says, I agree about the red flags due to his family and early events in life. Tracy says she loves the new judge. No nonsense. 818 says, y'all can laugh and call me crazy all you want when I told you about the DNA. Oh, and Jack D was the real private driver, not Eric Grower. Write that down. My understanding of Jack Decor is that he was exonerated by law enforcement. So he was exonerated. I looked at him seriously too, because the girls were messaging him. And I've been on this case since the very beginning of the case. So if you go back to like some of my early videos, and I've made over 135 videos on this case. Oh, by the way, I just want to thank everybody. We hit 5 million views this week on this channel on Reporter Room. So thank you, all of you. That's like a huge milestone. And so thank you for that. So yeah, great question. Grudger said, I believe BK ditched the knife in another state or on the drive to PA. Well, I'm going to show you where I think. And then I'm curious what you guys, Florence, think this is another stalling tactic. And Pepper said there's a 277 in her and only 146 likes. Please smash the like button. Yeah, please do. It takes me a long time to put these live streams together for you guys. And just even if you don't agree with me, because we're not going to all agree on every single case, you guys. The Delphi case, sometimes we agreed, sometimes we disagreed, because I don't think Richard Allen acted alone, in the sense that I think there were other people using that Anthony Schatz account. I don't, besides Keegan Klein and Richard Allen, I'm wondering if Ron Logan did also use that Anthony Schatz account. So I do think that, even, don't hate the messenger, just, know that we're not going to agree on every case. And a year from now, we're going to be talking about a completely different case. And, I want us to have just one of those, types of relationships where we can talk about things and have differing points of view and still be respectful of each other and appreciate each other. I learned from reading your comments. So if you feel differently, let me know in the comment section below. Tell me why. And I want to hear about it. So, all right. So let's keep going, guys. Let me just say thank you for the super sticker, Brother Mike. Thank you for the gifted channel membership. If you got that membership, please tell me who you are. And then Pepper, thank you so much for the gifted Reporter Room membership. If you got that membership, please tell me who you are and make sure you guys thank Njaz and thank Pepper. Thank you so much. And then Bushit says, I'm so glad I found your channel thanks to Criminality. Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Bushit. And please tell Criminality I said thank you as well. And thank you for the $10. I am saving up for a computer and I will be putting it toward that. I've started shopping for one. I'm going to need it because we're airing the BRYAN KOHBERGER trial. And while I'm airing that trial, I do want to be able to cover other cases at the same time. The disgusted American Matt said, hi, everyone. I'm going to go start from the beginning, just saying hello. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Florence said, I heard he was bullied by girls because of his weight in grade school. Could be. Shelley said, if he were to be given a plea in order to have DP taken off the table, he would have to tell the court everything he did. Yeah, that, and maybe the family members, want to see the evidence too of what, because what he tells the court of what he did, versus what the evidence shows may not be the same thing too. But yeah, I can understand that. I think you're right. Lucy said, no, it's not about defense. The autism prevents DP legally cannot execute someone who's mentally handicapped. Right. Exactly. Lucy's right. You cannot. And this is why I think it won't apply to BRYAN KOHBERGER. I think it's going to be really hard to make the case that he's handicapped in any way, being that he is in a PhD program and received a master's degree. Again, I think if his IQ had been below 70 and he was mentally impaired in some way, mentally disabled, I think then it would apply. So, Lisa, great comment. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, 5 million views we got, you guys. We just hit 5 million views. So thank you to all of you guys who support the channel. All right, let's keep going because I do want to get through everything, and I have some. And then wait, there's more. So let me grab this. Steak knives. Let me see. Okay. All right, so let's start with this. Okay, so, oh no. I have, let me see. It clipped, there it is. Okay, it clicked over by itself. Okay, so I just want to show you the receipts. So BK traveled to Lewis Clark Valley in the hours after the crime. So we know from the phone pings that he was allegedly at the 1122 King Road home, that he was allegedly at that house the morning that the morning of the crimes, right? He returned to the crime scene if he was there at all. Again, he's innocent until proven guilty. So, but then after that, the court documents show that he traveled roughly 35 miles, so a good 40 minutes from Pullman, where he lived, to Lewis Clark Valley, just hours after the investigation. So why was he there? Well, I'm going to show you why I think he was there. Allegedly he was shopping, and here's the actual time of the crimes, which is different than the inside looking account thought, which is 4 a.m. to 4:25 a.m. And that's the actual time that the crimes were committed. I think it's even tighter now. I think it's 4:04 because of the DoorDash delivery. But the affidavit tells us that BK traveled along Highway 195 to Clarkston, Washington. So this, they talk about how unnerving it was for people in the community. I don't know. Around 12:36 on November 13th, investigators report his phone used cell phone resources near Kate's Cup of Joe on Port Drive in Clarkston. So why was he all the way down in Clarkston? And he reportedly went into a Albertsons. Now, Kroger's and Albertsons, my understanding is that they were, at least at this time, owned by the same company. So why, and Kroger's was located right in Pullman. So why would he have traveled to a grocery store owned by the same company as Kroger's all the way down in Clarkston? Well, I believe that this is where he got rid of the knife. So let me move myself out of the way here so I can show you. I'm like waiting for it to populate. Okay. Let me just show you this on the map so it makes more sense. Okay. So let me just make sure we're all looking at this and I'm not blocking your way. I'm not. Okay. So if you look on the map with me, you can see that Pullman is here and Moscow is here. And then Clarkston is down here. And down here we have this reservation called the Nez Perce Historic Trail. And there is a river there called Clearwater. And I believe that is where he would have thrown it. And you can just see it's acres and acres of wilderness. And so a lot of people have speculated that maybe that's where he threw, the knife away. So let's look at it on this map. Let me move myself out of the way here. And let's look at it together. Whoop. Okay, so you can see that he traveled from Pullman all the way down to here to get to Clarkston. That's quite a drive. Moscow was over here. We know he went to Moscow the morning of the crimes, and I believe that van's shoe print, which is a size 13, and I told you that in the affidavit it says that they retrieved a pair of Nike shoes at a size 13. So I believe that van's shoe print is going to match the same size as Bryan Kohlberger, allegedly. Let me clarify. The van shoe print, I don't know 100% is a size 13. This is speculation here. I believe that because Ann Taylor did not argue that she argued that the print wasn't traveling in the right direction, the footprint, and therefore it should be ruled out. And the judge said that he thought it did line up with Dylan's account. So that was her. But my question was, why didn't she argue that the footprint didn't match the same size as Bryan Kohlberger? Why wouldn't she have argued that? And the only, answer that I could come up with to that is because it is the same size as Bryan Kohlberger's. Why didn't she argue that the van's footprint doesn't match any shoes that Bryan Kohlberger had or has? And maybe she couldn't argue that. So she just had to argue the way it was going, the direction it was traveling in. So that's, but anyway, you can see that. So he would have, according to the phone pings, he went here to the crime scene. And I believe that's why that front door was seen wide open by neighbors. But then later he travels all the way down here. And if you look here, let me move myself out of the way. Yeah, you can look here below me. Let me just go back. You can see that it would have taken 41 minutes. It was 34 miles to get there. So it's quite the drive for, to go for no reason. So let's look at this together now. So now you're looking at this Nez Perce reservation, and you can just see how vast it is. And you can also see that the Payette National Forest is in and around here also. So I believe that this is the real reason why this is where I believe he actually got rid of the knife, in my opinion. Would have been here in the Clearwater River, which runs through the Nez Perce reservation. And again, it's just acres and acres and acres of wooded area. It would have been the perfect place to get rid of the knife sheath. And it really is the only explanation that I could think of why he would, unless he, commonly drove from Pullman to Clarkston, why would he pass Kroger's and other grocery store outlets to go all the way down to Clarkston? It just seems like a long way out of the way to go just to go grocery shopping. Just seems like 41 minutes. I just feel like there's, something else there. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Let me welcome Pepper for says 5 million views, and Pepper's been a member for 7 months. Thank you so much, Pepper, for being part of the Reporter Room family, and thank you for congratulating us on 5 million views. We can all celebrate this together as a Reporter Room community. And then thank you, Princess Elsa, for being a channel member for 6 months. She says, yay, a good 6 months. Thank you so much, Princess Elsa. I really am grateful that you have been a channel member for 6 months. All right, let me take some more questions. Let me put this back up.
Don't have to.
So I do think I didn't go into the Strava app today. If you want me to just show you some receipts on that for next time, let me know. I will be glad to do that. I went into it a little bit about a year ago, but it's been a while. And let's see. 818 says, why would the private driver have the need to get cleared or exonerated, as you said. You talking about the DoorDash delivery? The owner of the Mad Greek and his wife said they never attended it, and Kaylee didn't work there because people think she did it. Kaylee did work there. She wasn't working there currently, but she had worked there prior. So Kaylee used to work at the Mad Greek, and the two girls that were working, the two young women that were working there currently, were Kaylee and Xana. Why would the private driver have the need to get cleared or exonerated, as you said? I'm not sure what you mean by private driver. Are you talking about the DoorDash delivery person? Law enforcement would have absolutely cleared that person, if that's what you're asking, but I'm not really sure. If you want to clarify that. MK says Kate is by the Snake River. Yeah, the Snake River is there. The Clearwater River is there. Bravo says, are we believing everything written down in the original PCA? Well, that'll be up to the jury to decide, but I am going to use court documents. This is a journalistic channel. So rather than just, making up crazy theories like there's tunnels under the houses and this was a pay-per-view event and it was aired on the air, instead of just making up crazy theories, I am trying to bring you guys information and then expand on that information with, some speculation, but that's based in actual facts than we know. So I'm going to be using the PCA and the affidavit. So, great question, Bravo Bray. Thanks for asking that. Leslie says, unfortunately, I hung out with bullies. And Jazz wants to know what your proof is. Yeah, cite your sources, guys. And then don't be upset with each other if we have differences of opinion, as long as people are saying it respectfully. But if you have a source that says differently, then tell me what the source is. And credible sourcing, to me, this is a journalistic channel, so I'm going to be using court documents, and I'm going to be using court records, and I'm going to be using media information to try to put together the live stream. Thank you so much for your thumbs up, Sandra. 818 says unsealed court hearing documents, PG-16 Payne clearly said that the FBI never told him Brian's DNA was on the knife sheath. He says they supposedly told him to look into him as a person of interest. So I'm going to just take issue with the FBI never told him that it was Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheath. I do believe that at the time they were directing him to look into him as a person of interest because they were still narrowing the field. But I do think the DNA evidence was shared with law enforcement. We know this because he was arrested and the warrants were gotten as probable cause warrants, which is why Ann Taylor was, working so hard to get the IgG DNA excluded, because if she could have excluded the IgG DNA and the judge did deny that motion, then she would be able to say that his arrest, where they did match BK's cheek swab DNA to the inside snap of that knife sheath DNA in the octillion, she could have gotten that thrown out, and maybe some of the searches that were done of his house, his car, all the warrants that we've gone through. So for the people who say there's no evidence against Bryan Kohberger, I just want to share, and I know this, might be hard for some people to hear. I understand. I just do want to share that there is evidence, and Ann Taylor filed 13 motions to suppress that evidence. So I don't know what the jury's going to think, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I just want to share that information with you. So I hope I've answered your question. Pepper says, I spent 13 years in hands down in a poor family getting bullied myself. I learned how to defend myself. I didn't turn into a narcissistic sociopath. Top Cat says, I wonder if they've done searches in that river. Looks like looking for a needle in a haystack. I think, yeah, even if they had, it's acres, as hundreds and hundreds of acres. I agree with you. And I think that's why it was the perfect place to get rid of whatever you needed to get rid of. Hi, Sandra. Well, guys, May says a Cinderella moment if the shoe fits, the Vans shoe print. 818 is saying the Vans print was 9.5. What is your source on that? Where did you get the 9.5, size 9.5 from? I would love to report that out if that's true. Tell me what your source is so I can look at that for the next live stream. Christopher said, this is another cover-up. I know more plausible theories, far more plausible, and I'm in Auckland. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Lucy said, unfortunately, I have to go out. We'll catch the rest later. Take care, Lucy. Well, I think Kat says nobody is going to buy that. Mike says, a long story short, the DNA was found in the sheath button and matched BK. That is going to be really hard for I think juries do love DNA, and I do think that's going to be hard for the defense to overcome that. Levitating Elephant said she's probably talking about the person that drove them home. Are you talking about the driver of the Uber driver? They were ruled out as well. 818 says, this is Rola Moda. So many tips, but none were about Brian because they didn't know his name till after they pulled the sheath from the Othram lab. Othram is the lab where they ignored the blood DNA over touch DNA. Well, they did test the blood DNA. I get this a lot in the comment section. They did test the blood DNA. The reason I believe they tested is we know it's male. But according to Idaho law, and I addressed this in a live stream 2 weeks ago, according to a law from the 1990s in Idaho, they can only go so far with DNA evidence. You have to have some kind of probable cause to do further testing. So I hope I've answered your question. Shelley said, I think we're all in for a lot of surprises when the evidence is produced at trial. Be patient. Yeah, I think so too. And there is evidence. We know this because Ann Taylor wanted to have the evidence excluded. So we know there is evidence. Mike says, when authorities tell family they can have 100% have the right person, I can trust it 100%. I don't have any doubt. There's no defense. And Josh says, because they are the facts we know at this stage. Let's see. Oh. Nonim says, he is 100% autistic. I have 2 children on the spectrum and have been commenting this from the begging on many videos. However, ASD is not an excuse. I am disgusted they use it as a defense. And I think it's really got to be hard for people who are autistic to like have this used in this way, because most people who are on the spectrum are no more likely to commit a crime like this than a neurotypical person is. So I just want to say it with that caveat. Christopher Carling thinks it's a corrupted investigation. It's clear. So I guess my question would be, drop me a comment in the comment section below. If you think this is a corrupted investigation, tell me in detail why you feel that way. A1S says, nope, they never had his touch DNA. Well, they did. They did have his touch DNA. Payne misled everyone in the PCA. I'm sorry, but the FBI collected his DNA, and I don't know what to tell you. I guess we'll see what the jury decides. But Leslie says, I do believe there's a lot of evidence. We will see it at the trial. Kami says, if Steve Gonzalez has seen so much of it and says game over, then that's good enough for me. The blood DNA matched one of the 4 brothers. My understanding is that the DNA that was collected from the trash, Michael Kohlberger's trash in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, where Brian was staying, his parents' trash bin, that matched one of the 4 brothers. And my understanding is that that was the 4 brothers of Brian, not Bryan Kohlberger, but Michael Kohlberger. So I hope I've answered your query. Mike says, whoop. It was a series by Eric. They go around asking people to kick, flip, act, and they give them gifts. I don't know what I missed that. Yeah, please subscribe. It's free and it helps me out so much. Wendy says that they are using that as a defense. Ann Taylor wants to use as a defense that Bryan Kohlberger is autistic. I hope I've answered your question, Wendy. It's me. Mike says they say he has autism now. It sounds like a confession to Mike. 818 says Read page 16. Payne says FBI didn't ever make him believe Brian's DNA was on the knife sheath. They only referred to him as a person of interest, a tip. Yeah, that was early on. That was early on. That's correct. But later, he did become a suspect. And I've addressed this in prior videos. If you go back to the videos I did in January, February, March, and April of 2024, I go into a lot of detail on how law enforcement narrowed their search. It was a very wide field, and they narrowed it down right to Bryan Kohlberger. So I hope I've answered your question. Truth Exposed says, I went to old school BMX freestyle bikes. I just sold it. Oh, I think I'm like in a conversation that's not mine. Kat says his brothers were raised by their mom. Mike was raised by his dad. Truth Exposed said, I'm a chick, but I don't know how. Oh, we're talking about bikes. Okay. Well, guys, MS says really need all the evidence so we can get a true feeling of everything. I agree. So I'm urging caution, and I feel like Dylan's testimony is going to be bolstered. In my opinion, I think that Ann Taylor will have a field day over the fact that she was, inebriated, that she was drunk, probably, which explains the delay in her reaction to everything. But I do think Ann Taylor will have, a field day with that. But I also think that the Van's shoe print, and being that Ann Taylor did not argue that this was not Bryan Kohlberger's size, and that Ann Taylor did not argue that this was not a shoe that Bryan Kohlberger wore, and therefore it should be excluded on that basis, makes me wonder if the Van shoe print is a size 13, and if the Van shoe print does match a shoe that Bryan Kohlberger wore or owned. And remember, we have all of these searches for things that Bryan Kohlberger purchased that I went through on the last couple of live streams, including his Amazon searches. So, were the Vans shoes purchased online? Were they able to find, if he didn't have the shoes, if he got rid of the shoes, were they able to link him to these Van shoes in some other way? Let me know what you think about all of this. So I just want to be clear. She said something that looked like a hand vacuum. And yes, I did read about it. And I talked about it too in the last couple of live streams. I believe it was a K kit, an ill with a K kit. That just looked dark and kind of long. It was a bag that he was carrying. And we know that there was some testimony that there was a bag related to Bethany. We haven't seen it yet, but because the judge talked about, because Ann Taylor wanted that suppressed as well, he talked about the witness seeing the suspect dropping things into a bag near the patio doors. And that's what the judge said. So yeah, great point, RSV. Yeah, the law says innocent until proven guilty. Leslie's right. So, I'm just talking about this case in terms of Bryan Kohlberger because he's, the one whose attorney is filing the motions. He's the one the prosecution is filing the motions against. He's the one on trial. So obviously we do have to talk about this, but I do want to make it very clear. He's innocent until proven guilty. Jeremy says nobody could come up with a logical explanation as to why there would be a cover-up or a frame job. Quote, yes, let's pin this on an innocent guy so the real culprit can do this again. Makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, I understand why you feel like that, Jeremy. I do. I would like to have like a legitimate source of, if you think somebody else did it, then, tell me why you think somebody else did it. What would be the motive? When did they do it? How did they do it? And then how did his car, and I do believe they are going to link that car because Ann Taylor slipped up, and I showed this in a video and a live stream as well, where Ann Taylor slipped up and said that the car, she said not Brian's car, not the video with Brian. Her exact quote was not the video with Brian's car. So I do think that law enforcement is going to be able to show, or the prosecution through law enforcement, that this car that was circling the 1122 King Road house, and I could be wrong, but I do believe it's going to lead back to Bryan Kohlberger, either through something identifying, because they would have picked up all of the CCTV cameras on the way to and on the way back from Pullman, Washington. And I think that's why Ann Taylor had to put him in the car, stargazing and moon gazing that night because he was in the car that night. Levitating Elephant says Bundy did it on his own too. I think it would be riskier to try to find other people willing to commit this crime with him. Most of these criminals work alone. And you're right, Levitating Elephant. I agree with you. I think they do tend to work alone. All right, guys. Well, I am going to leave it there. I do want to thank our producers, Njaz, Sasha Angel, Mikey M, George Brown, and Pepper. Thank all of our channel members. If you would like to be a channel member, please hit the join button and your name will appear. And in the top chat, you will have a check mark next to your name. And your name will appear in all of my live streams and in my videos. And we are going to do a members only live stream on either Sunday or Monday. I'm going to schedule it today. And subscribing is free. So I can't get to 40,000 subscribers without you. It doesn't cost anything. It helps me out a lot. So please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me. I'm going to close this out and I'm going to immediately open a Sebastian Rogers live stream. So why don't you guys come on over and follow me over from that one,